Coming up later in the show, we're going to talk more about the bench battle going on in Mount Dora as the city council discussing some potential changes to a policy to remove memorial benches after a certain number of years. There was some emotional public comment last night from some family members in the city who are upset with the way things have been handled. We'll have that in a little bit. We also just caught up with Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer to ask him a couple of questions about immigration enforcement in the city and also what the future is of the Trust Act. That was at the center of the letter that Attorney General James Othmeyer sent to the city of Orlando and Mayor Dyer, saying that Orlando, as he understood it, was basically having some sanctuary policies. All seems to be smoothed over right now, but we did get the chance to speak with Mayor Dyer. Live look right now as you see Governor Ron DeSantis speaking in Fort Myers. He has been talking about law enforcement, talking about continuing to advocate for raises, talking about recruitment and retention, that kind of thing. A couple of other things here that we are also monitoring at this hour. The Florida House is in session right now, debating a number of bills. One of the things that we are keeping an eye on is House Bill 949, which would ban cell phone use during the school day. They are actually talking about that right now, so we will check in on that in a couple of minutes here because it looks like they are discussing an amendment to that bill. Also at 11 a.m., so any minute now, we expect Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of U.S. Health and Human Services, to discuss new findings from the CDC's Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network survey. So several things we are monitoring at this hour. Let's go ahead and listen in to the governor. I think things may be winding down, maybe about to answer some questions. In fact, he is answering some questions and right now slamming the Florida House yet again. So let's go ahead and listen in here.
You know, when they're attacking me, people say, oh, they're fighting the governor. Well, yeah, but they're really fighting you. They're really fighting the people that elected them because they're not honoring the agenda that they ran on. And I think you have, I said this yesterday, most of these rank and file members, so probably some of the folks down here in Southwest Florida, I've known a lot of these guys, you know, we've worked well. The leadership tells them they have to do certain things, and if they don't do it, they lose a committee assignment, they get their bills pulled, they don't get appropriation. So it's a retribution that is done, and they kind of hold that hammer. You know, you have these staff members that order these people around. And so I think a lot of them say, well, you know, I kind of have to vote this way, otherwise I'm going to get penalized. And that may be true, but that's not leadership. Leadership means you got to dig in and do what's right. If you say you're for law enforcement and you're a rank and file House member, you need to come out and say this is wrong, that what they're doing is wrong. You got to be willing to do that. Is there going to be retribution to you? Yeah,
so
there probably will be.
Really
but you know what?
I know there are
if I had taken that position back when I was getting hit during COVID or fighting Disney, or all these, oh, I can't take any incoming. I got to do what's safe. This state would not be where it is today. And so leadership requires you to stand up and be counted. So in all these things, I'm always mindful, and that's why people say, oh, well, you're not getting a lot. No. It's not personal, it's business. And my business is to deliver on the mandate that I got from voters to pursue a very bold Florida First agenda. And everything I told people I would do, I've done. You didn't elect me under one pretense and I did other. I did what I said. Even my critics would acknowledge I've done what I said, and I continue to do that. I think they are effectively rebelling against the voters that sent them here. And that just doesn't work. It's not sustainable to have a model like that. So I think that we need to continue with the success that we've had. The leadership in the Florida House, they're the ones who are trying to deviate from the Florida First model that has proven not only successful here, we have these other states come and try to mimic our policies. I mean, heck, the Trump administration, there's a headline in the Wall Street Journal last month, Trump administration accountability for higher education. You want to know what that looks like? Look at Florida. Florida did it first. And they talked about all the things that we've done. The House is actually trying to undo what we've already done and what is now being replicated or attempted to be by the Trump administration. So we've led on these things.
We've been listening to Governor Ron DeSantis speaking in Fort Myers. We do want to listen in now as the debate begins over House Bill 949 in the Florida House. This is the bill that would ban cell phone use during the school day. They are getting ready to debate this bill ahead of final passage. Let's listen in.
Members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
117 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes. Read the next bill.
By Careers and Workforce Subcommittee.
Well, that was very quick. They waived debate, and you see that it passed unanimously. So that Florida House bill to ban phones in class passes 117 to nothing in the House after its third reading. So let's go ahead and go back to Fort Myers and continue to listen to the governor's answer to this question.
Sure. If they are doing things that are not in keeping with what we promise voters, that will be met with a veto. I will tell you, though, and so yes, there will be, but I also think that their agenda has been so far outside what the voters that send them there expect that I think most of it's dead on arrival in the Florida Senate. I don't think a lot of this stuff's even going to end up reaching my desk. I think this was a gross miscalculation. I think it was an inappropriate use of having an opportunity to pursue a very good agenda. I mean, and this was pointed out yesterday, you know, we have the biggest Republican supermajority in the history of the state. Are they producing things that are causing you to be like, yeah, go get them, attaboy? No, they're not producing anything that's been significant. And so, you know, you look at that and you just kind of scratch your head and say, why? And again, I don't think that that is something that rank and file members, you should talk to your state representatives. Call your representative in the Florida House and say, what's going on with your agenda? Don't let them feed you talking points. You know, get the real scoop. But I think the real scoop is rank and file members, they face retribution. And, you know, this is why I think you're going to end up probably seeing a Freedom Caucus develop in the Florida House of Representatives, because it's just untenable to have a situation where leadership is walking these folks off a plank and making them be at constant war with their own voters. It just doesn't work that way. So will there be vetoes on some of the legislation? Of course, there always is to a certain extent. And sometimes the legislature's not happy with me, but you know, sometimes I will put the reasons and I'll have some of the folks come to me and say, you know what, you make a good point. Maybe we'll work on it a little bit different way next year. So that even that can be a collaborative process. But I think some of the stuff's going to run aground in the Senate. I don't think, like this higher ed, to try to kneecap our ability to hold higher ed accountable, I don't think that's going to get on the desk. If it does, we'll invite you all to the ceremony. We'll veto it. That's fine. But I don't even think it's going to get there.
The chairman said that mistakes were made when it came to record keeping. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
No, because it's a private charity. It is not the government. This is why I think, first of all, the whole thing that the House leadership's doing is a manufactured fraud. This is a hoax. They are trying to smear one of the most successful programs anywhere in the country, which is our government policy. It's not an associated charity. It's our government policy that has gotten 30,000 people off of welfare and saved $100 million. But more important than that, it's actually given people hope. It's given them meaning. It's put them on their feet, and people know who are in need that there's actually people in the community that care about you. And it may be the church, it may be a charity, it may be some of these other things, but that's the name of the game. So that's what this is. And a lot of these members, they didn't seem to even know that Hope Florida was the state policy, and that Hope Florida was not necessarily this direct support organization, which has supplemented the mission, and it's given grants to charities, it's given grants to Hope Navigators. There have been different things that has been done, which has been helpful and continue. But that is not the Hope Florida program. It is not operated by the government. It's a private group. And so, you know, they can talk about, you know, how they did all that. But I could just tell you this, Hope Florida has changed lives for the better. Hope Florida, because of the First Lady's vision and leadership, has made a real difference in our communities. And there's some people that are threatened by that. There's some people that don't like that. Maybe it's because it conflicts with their vision of government first. Maybe they just don't like seeing other people have success in the political sphere. Maybe they have their own agenda or their own axe to grind. But I can tell you the program has been fantastic. The DSO has provided support for anti-drug efforts, grants to charitable organizations, as well as bonuses to our Hope Navigators, which has made a difference in the lives of the navigators who are working hard to kind of come to terms with a new approach, which I think is exciting for most, but it's also different than what they had been doing before. So, you know, for some of these Republican leaders to be joining with liberal Democrats and liberal media to manufacture smears against Hope Florida, against me, against the First Lady, it just shows you they are not on your team. They are not doing what they said that they would do. So I thought the whole thing yesterday was a total flop. I think that these are people that are just desperate for any type of attention that they can get, but they're not doing the people's business. And I can tell you there's nothing coming out of the Florida House of Representatives that is going to rival the success that Hope Florida has had in any way, shape, or form. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see ya.
Governor Ron DeSantis wrapping up in Fort Myers, where he continued to advocate for raises for law enforcement. At the end, asked a couple of questions, which we were able to listen into. He again criticized House Republican lawmakers and also had again strong words for the House panel, looking into these questions surrounding Hope Florida. He was talking about Hope Florida's successes, calling this again a flop, a hoax. Yesterday, he said it was a farce. So again, criticizing the questions into the Hope Florida Foundation and the funding and how they spent $10 million of a Medicaid settlement that was distributed to them. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back with more right after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning. A burn ban is in effect in Volusia County as crews continue to fight a large brush fire near Deltona. They're making good progress on it, 80% contained. But this sparked up yesterday afternoon in the woods along State Road 44 between Deltona and New Smyrna Beach. Fox 35's Morley Capper has more.
Good morning. The good news is that no evacuations have been made. This brush fire is 270 acres. 80% of it is contained. Today, the focus is really on the burn ban that is in effect in Volusia County. The fire was first reported Tuesday at 2:44 p.m. It's burning near Ranchette and Holly Roads, east of Lake Helene and Deltona and west of New Smyrna Beach. The Florida Forest Service used helicopters to drop water on the flames. Now, the burn ban is really important because of dry conditions. So all outdoor burning, including yard waste, bonfires, campfires, warming fires, and outdoor cooking fires, they're all banned. If you have open flames, you could be ticketed $500 and or up to 60 days in jail. Now, the cause of this fire is under investigation. So in the meantime, make sure that you're following wildfire protocol. There's some tips there on your screen, like disposing cigarettes properly. Make sure that you're not parking on dry grass, and make sure that your roof and your gutters are cleaned as well. Reporting in Volusia County, Marley Capper, Fox 35 News.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, we're talking about these wildfires that we've seen, but this dry weather not going anywhere.
Yeah, this dry air is here to stay. And in fact, we had a cold front move in last night, Garrett, and that knocked our humidity down even more. You know, last week I was joking about how this is going to be the kind of weather that'll give you chapped lips. I've got that going on. So if it looks like I'm wearing lipstick, it's actually chapped lips. I just put on the chapstick, so I got some nice lip gloss going on here. But yeah, that's the bottom line with today. It's going to be super dry, but at the same time, super beautiful. We've got 75 degrees at this midday hour over at Lake Fairview. We're going to top out today in the lower to middle 80s, about 84 in Orlando, 83 degrees in Bushel, about 82 degrees for Sanford, and highs in the mid 70s at the coastline. A little bit of a sea breeze coming in. Tonight, with the dry air in place, that will allow us to cool down to the upper 40s in Ocala and in Gainesville, with low to mid 50s around the Orlando area. You know, these cold nights are going to become increasingly fleeting in their presence, because as we head into May in several weeks, we're going to see our overnight lows typically not getting out of the 60s and then eventually the 70s as we get into summertime. So the humidity is not far behind, but in the near term, high pressure coming off of the Mexican plateau, the Sonoran plateau, will be pushing over the Gulf and over Florida this weekend. Now that's a key where it comes from, because that plateau is hot, right? You get low latitude, bright sunshine, high pressure developing at about 7,000 to 8,000 feet above sea level, and then it just cruises across the Gulf and parks over Florida. That's going to lead to highs this weekend pushing 90 degrees for Easter. It's going to be a hot Easter afternoon. Beautiful sunshine, though, through and through. Barely a cloud to be found. But in the upper levels of the atmosphere, early next week, that big high-pressure system keeping all the bad weather away and pushing heat into our region will be replaced with a trough. And that's an upper-level weakness that'll cause a couple of showers, maybe a storm to develop. So we're going to have a noticeable pattern change into next week for generally the more unsettled, where every afternoon we could see a couple of showers, maybe even a thunderstorm. As far as the near-term forecast goes, looking at future clouds and radar, we're going to be clear through Saturday and sunny and beautiful. It's just going to be gorgeous. High fire danger, but that's the cost of paradise, I guess. It's going to be really nice out. And then we start to catch some clouds on Easter as the system moves in. And on Monday, isolated showers, maybe a thunderstorm. The only problem this time of year with thunderstorms, and this is going to sound kind of ironic, is that they produce lightning. And that lightning can produce wildfires. In fact, lightning is the driving force behind wildfires in Florida in the springtime. And so with things as dry as they've been, if lightning does strike, you don't have to have a heavy rain to have lightning happen. You can just have a light shower, so there's even less water to extinguish it. It can spark an ember which then will sometimes wait days for dry and windy conditions to spark up into a flame. So that's kind of the time of year we're in right now. It's ironic because you think of rain as being something that helps the drought and knocks down our fire threat. But in this case, because it's been so dry and we're mired in severe drought, rain actually may pose the risk of wildfires next week if we get a few thunderstorms. Monday looks to be isolated at best. 84 degrees today, mid-80s through Saturday, pushing 90 for Sunday, Easter Sunday, and into the day Monday. And beyond that, next week, temps in the mid-80s with a few isolated showers and storms. So yeah, Garrett, it really is like life, right? There's always that compromise for this beautiful, dry air, sunshine-filled skies, and a delicate, light, wafting breeze. We pay in wildfire threat, as well as chapped lips, cracked knuckles, all of the above. Drink a lot of water. That'll be the thing to do.
All right. There are certainly prices to pay for it. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure as always, Garrett. Thank you.
Well, all seems to be smoothed over now between the state attorney general, James Othmeyer, and Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, after the attorney general sent the city of Orlando a letter accusing them of sanctuary policies. This is over the Trust Act, which was passed back in 2018, that kept Orlando police from asking victims or witnesses their immigration status during interviews and for investigation. Now, the mayor says the city will adhere to federal laws. In his response to the Attorney General, the letter he sent back, he also pointed out that the city has signed one of those immigration enforcement agreements with ICE, one of those 287G agreements. So what's the future of the Trust Act? Where do things go from here with that? That is the question that Fox 35's Randy Hildreth asked when she caught up with Mayor Dyer at a Neighborhood Watch event just moments ago.
What is the Trust Act in place right now? Is the city still following that?
So we are going to comply with all federal and state laws, and to the extent that the Trust Act is not in conflict with any state laws, it applies.
So yes, but not in conflict, as long as it's not in conflict.
We are going to comply with all federal and state laws related to immigration.
Is there anything that you want to say to the community in regards to the Attorney General's statement and just something you want people to know?
Well, that the city of Orlando is going to comply with all federal and state laws, but we remain a welcoming city. We welcome 75 million visitors here every single year, and we care about our people.
His language of reversing course, when he reposted your reaction letter, reversing course, would you maintain that Orlando has done nothing wrong and will continue doing what we're doing?
Orlando has always complied with all federal and state laws and will continue to do so.
Yep, no more questions. Thank you,
I think it's a misunderstanding.
If you didn't hear at the end there, he said he thinks it was just a little bit of a misunderstanding. As he repeated multiple times, the city of Orlando will continue to enforce all federal immigration laws. In Brevard County, the teacher accused of being at that house party that involved a number of students as well, once again on paid administrative leave. We had that for you yesterday here on Fox 35 News Plus. The school district says they made that decision after seeing the body camera video from the night when police responded to that incident. Now, here's what's new this morning is that parents again gathered outside Saturn Elementary School. They were there yesterday protesting her return to the classroom. Out there again this morning, hoping that to keep that teacher out of the classroom. Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie has the details.
And this morning, parents stood outside of Saturn Elementary School once again, but this time they weren't protesting. They were holding signs, letting other families know that their voices were heard and made a change. Brevard County Public Schools is once again pulling Carly Anderson from the classroom and placing her on administrative leave with pay. Now, after the incident, she was transferred to a new school and only taught here at Saturn Elementary School for 2 days. The district says they reversed their decision to have her in the classroom after seeing the officer-worn body camera video showing her out front of a house party that Cocoa Beach police say had drugs, alcohol, and hundreds of teens. After seeing that video, school board member Matt Susan immediately began taking steps to pull Carly Anderson from her new classroom, and now parents are breathing a sigh of relief.
Overall, though, I'm just glad that they listened to us and they did something about it, because it can be hard to get the school board to listen to you. So, but thanks to Fox 35 in particular, like taking the time to actually help me get the word out, it really helped. It really helped. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
The school district says they only originally cleared Anderson because the state attorney's office lowered her charges from felonies to misdemeanors, but board members say the body cam is enough to keep her away from kids. Now, parents originally told Fox 35 that they plan to be outside protesting at the school every day this week until that teacher was removed from the classroom, and now they say tomorrow they get to sleep in.
And a new angle of a close call on I-95 in Volusia County over the weekend. So earlier this week here on Fox 35 News Plus, we showed you the video where after a crash between a car and a deer, Volusia County Sheriff's deputy and a Florida Highway Patrol trooper had responded. Were on the side of the road when they were nearly hit by a car. We had the body camera video from a Volusia County deputy. Now we have dash camera video from the Florida Highway Patrol car showing just how close of a call this really was. Take a look.
4. This is a car restricted entry. You guys start EMS fire rescues.
Again, from that angle, you can really see just how close of a call that was, and a reminder, of course, to move over when there are cars, first responders, disabled vehicles, other things on the side of the road, and that shows why that is so important. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Emotions were high last night at the Mount Dora City Council meeting. This is over the memorial bench policy. So we had reported about how a bench honoring Joey Cosson is back after the family raised concerns about its removal. The family had bought that memorial bench downtown after Joey was killed in Tallahassee. Now, the bench was removed as the city is replacing a number of benches across the city. But the problem here was that the family says they were not notified of that. They just showed up and it was gone. Now, the city says bench sponsors are supposed to renew their contracts with the city after 10 years, but that is a policy that they say was put in place after this bench was already there. That's according to the family. Now, the mayor is asking the city to take a look at this policy, maybe make some changes. And last night, they put a pause on the removal of any further benches, with the exception of any that have to be removed immediately for safety. But I want to play for you some of the public comment. We heard from several speakers there, many of whom have lost loved ones and put up memorial benches in the city of Mount Dora, who spoke about what this means to them and why they're so upset by what is happening right now.
First and foremost, I want to thank Jean Ann for yesterday. Her professionalism and her show of concern in this matter was impeccable, just impeccable. She knew the stress that I was under yesterday, and I am now currently under tonight because of things that have been said by council. I want to thank Troy for doing everything that he needed to do yesterday to find my bench and to find my plaque. Troy, you went above and beyond. The first time my bench went missing, so this is the second time this has happened. It took weeks to find it and to find the plaque because the city keeps no records of anything at all. 21 and a half years ago, when I purchased that bench and that plaque, I had to fill out a form. It is not my responsibility to know where that form is because I gave it to the city. And with that, it was stipulated that the city would maintain the maintenance of that bench for life. For life. Not for a stipulated amount of time or to take into consideration. It was the city's responsibility to maintain that bench. So the other day when I went down to my bench and found that it was not there, you do not know the turmoil that that caused me and the stress, the undue stress that this has put me under. So shame on the city for doing this, and shame on the city for not knowing what is going on in the city. I want to know who authorized to take benches away and why this was done. Again, like I said, this is the second time this has happened. It gives me great solitude knowing that my bench is where it is because that's where we sat for years to look out at the water. I've been a resident in this town for 32 years. We always sat on that bench to look at the water. So shame on the city for removing it. And if it wasn't for the bad publicity that has been going on in the town, that I felt the need to go look at my bench. And to my amazement, as I'm approaching it, I see a brand new green metal bench. And I went, wow, there's a new bench, because the city said that they would maintain the bench for life. And when I walked around the bench to the front, it was not my plaque that was there. So again, Troy, thank you again very much. And I never want to have to address this situation ever again. And not that it's only good for 10 years. This was for life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this? Obviously, you've seen the upset of people, and I certainly.
Sure. Seems appropriate.
I'd like to say something, if I could.
Oh, yeah,
Your
miss.
time to fill out a card, so if that's okay.
No, that's okay. Come on up. I know.
My brother Joey's bench is right across the street here at City Hall. Joey Cosson, who was a student of Mount Dora High School, star athlete, who's very well loved in this community. And when he passed away, when I was just 11, almost 30 years ago, my mom got this bench as a memorial to him because his gravesite, he's buried in Chicago with his late father, and that's where he is. So that bench stood as our memorial to him, and the only place we had really for him at home here. We celebrated his birthday every single year there with lots of friends and lots of family, and it was a tradition of ours. And so, like this gentleman just said, to go and find his bench missing out of nowhere on Friday morning, like my mother had to do, it makes me upset, emotional right now. But for her, that feeling was unimaginable. Okay, and I don't know if anyone's lost a child. I couldn't imagine with my son now. I can't even imagine how she would have felt and how she did feel. But it's, to me, I think the point I want to get across to you guys, and I know, there's red tape and there's bureaucracy and there's all these things that have made whatever happened happen. But the main point is the fact that there was nobody that thought it was a good idea that they should have said something or made a statement to say, this is what the city plans to do. We're going to start removing these benches, which, by the way, sir, Mr. Rolfson, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that bench. It was in perfect condition.
I wasn't speaking about a particular bench.
That's fine, but I mean, to assume that they're just removing benches because they're, falling apart or a danger or anything like that, that's understandable, but that wasn't the case. You guys very easily, somebody could have put out a statement, which I think I mentioned to Troy a couple of times, that would have been an easy thing to do, and it would have been better than the nothing that was done. And I also appreciate Troy's efforts. We got the benches there. It's not the same one. It's a much more unsafe one, I would say. It's not in as good condition as his bench was, but it's there, the plaque's there, and that's important, and that I'm thankful for. I don't want to see this happening to more people, and I think that, you know, it's been proven over the weekend that it has upset a lot of people, and it's affected a lot of people, not just me. So I hope you guys just take that into consideration.
I pay my water to the city of Mount Dora, my electric to Duke Energy, and you know, I share the same concern everyone else has. I just think that the $3,500 to reattach the plaque is a little steep. I understand benches have to be replaced, and you know, progress is progress, but you know, my grandpa has a bench. We just added my brother's name to the plaque, who passed away in December, and I just think the $3,500 is a little ridiculous. So maybe that could be waived. That's it.
Many of the people that aren't here today that also have benches, the thing that you're grasping but not quite grasping is that most of these people are lifelong residents. They're not moving, they're not changing. These are memorials. They're not corporate sponsorships, they're memorials to loved ones. And that doesn't change after 10 years. And so when you say that they moved and that they can't be found, I would say that the majority of them are here. And that's why they set these benches up for these people. And that's one thing for you to keep in mind, because again, $3,500 to replace the plaques for people that have already paid a high price, because I think 30 years ago, and I could be wrong about this price, but 30 years ago when you took out the bench, or when they took out the bench for my cousin, I think it was about $2,000. So we're not talking about a cheap cost back then. It wasn't like it was a couple $100s. So I just want you to keep in mind that these are people that are lifelong residents, people that were born here, people that have lived here, raised their kids here, and died here. And you can't take that away from the community. That's it.
Well, as you saw there on your screen as well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary, has begun his news conference talking about this autism monitoring study. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but when we come back, we'll get you inside that. So keep it right here on Fox Local and on YouTube. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Go ahead and get you to this news conference in Washington, D.C. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of the Department of U.S. Health and Human Services, talking about this autism prevalence study by the CDC. He said the epidemic is real. He called it catastrophic for our country. Talked about the impact on healthcare costs. Also said it is preventable, saying he believes it's the result of some sort of environmental exposure. You know, he has pledged that the cause of this will be discovered by September. Let's go ahead and listen in.
And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it. And I think I'm going to have Walter Zaharodny, who is the most senior researcher for this project for ADDM, and who's been doing this for many years, to come up and say a little.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm here as a long-term autism researcher and a clinical psychologist. I get to wear two hats, one with patients and families, trying to help them get to a diagnosis and to interventions and treatments, but also for the last 20 plus years as the director of the New Jersey Autism Study, which is a CDC-sponsored autism surveillance system. We've monitored autism in New Jersey in concert with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention since 2000. When we began our endeavor with CDC, we expected to do maybe 2 or 3 baseline studies to establish how many children have autism, because it was not expected that autism prevalence would increase. Other childhood disabilities, neurologic disorders do not increase or change over time. But somehow, for some reason, with autism, everything was different. Autism went from being a very unusual, rare disability, which affected, as the secretary said, 1 child in maybe 10,000, to being known in every community, every school district, every center that cares for children with disabilities. Autism is real. It's a true disability. It's not a personality quirky issue. Everything has changed for the individual with autism, and while there's a wide range of expression, it does change the family, and it does inevitably change the community and the society in which we find it. Autism prevalence has increased very dramatically. It's increased in New Jersey, where we have excellent resources and access to services, and it's increased in all the states in the network. It's increased not only by the CDC, ADAM network, active surveillance activities, but it's increased according to federal IDEA statistics and information from a multitude of surveys. It is a true increase. There is better awareness of autism, but better awareness of autism cannot be driving disability like autism to increase by 300% in 20 years. That's what we saw in New Jersey. That's what the CDC report of yesterday indicates. And that's what, in my opinion, future reports from epidemiologists will show. The data provided in yesterday's report strongly suggests that not only is this a high point of autism prevalence, but in the future, rates can only be higher. Autism deserves to be treated as a real public health phenomenon, and I would say is an urgent public health crisis. It's not just that we're more astute or perceptive. It's not like 2 or 3 children out of for every one with autism has remained invisible. Autism is striking, and the consequences are lifelong. So I would urge.
Listening to a longtime autism researcher speaking there after RFK talked about the results of the CDC autism study. You see some of the numbers on your screen there. We should note that there is some disagreement about some of the language that this researcher and that RFK himself use in discussing and describing autism, specifically with epidemic. Some say, some other researchers say it is not an epidemic, that this is certainly diagnostic progress that is being made as we learn more about it and learn more about ways to diagnose it. We also, one other thing that is of debate is whether it is preventable, whether it is from environmental exposure, as RFK says, or whether there may be something else behind it. So still a lot of questions about this, but this news conference continuing to go on in Washington, D.C., as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been outspoken about this, will probably come back to the podium in a couple of minutes after this researcher. I also want to play for you a little bit of a news conference from this morning with Attorney General Pam Bondi, as she announced that the Department of Justice is suing Maine, specifically the Maine Department of Education, over allowing transgender athletes to compete in women's sports. This was Attorney General Bondi this morning speaking about this and claiming the state is not complying with the president's executive order that bans biological males from competing in women's sports. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
Today, the Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff. This is a violation of Title IX. The Department of Justice will not sit by when women are discriminated against in sports. This is about sports. This is also about these young women's personal safety. I've met many of these women throughout the past weeks and months, and what they have been through is horrific. We have exhausted every other remedy. We tried to get Maine to comply. We don't like standing up here and filing lawsuits. We want to get states to comply with us. That's what this is about. We have repeatedly notified Maine of its infractions and urged them to remedy the situation to protect women. We've stripped grants from Maine through other departments, and we are going to continue to fight for women. Let me give you some examples. Let me give you a timeline. This timeline, I think, is pretty important. So in February 2024, these are just a few examples. A biological boy started competing in women's ski races and cross-country races in Maine. He came in first in the 5K with a time that would have been 43rd among men. In February 2025, a biological boy won first place in the pole vaulting competition in Maine's indoor track and field meet. He beat every other girl by a significant margin. That qualified him for regional championships. That took a spot away from a young woman in women's sports. Shame on him. February 21st, 2025, President Trump has the governors at the White House. President Trump has the exchange with Janet Mills. He asked her about the issue. Her response, "We'll see you in court." Well, we still didn't sue. HHS and the Department of Ed opened investigations in an attempt to get them to comply. They both found violations. And in March, Maine refused to comply. I want to read you this letter. This is from the Maine Attorney General to the Department of Education. We will not sign the resolution agreement. We do not have revisions or a counterproposal. We agree we are at an impasse. Nothing in Title IX or its implementing regulations prohibits schools from allowing transgender girls and women to participate on girls' and women's sports teams. Well, they must not be reading the same Title IX that we're reading.
That was the Attorney General earlier today at a news conference in Washington, D.C., talking about the civil lawsuit against Maine over transgender athletes in women's sports. You're going to take one more break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
We want to get you back inside this news conference with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Some reporters asking questions, pushing back a little bit about some of his claims about autism. The data shows there is no doubt that the prevalence has increased. RFK saying that only up to 25%, though, of new autism cases are attributable to better methods of identifying and recognizing it. Also saying there are potentially some genetic vulnerabilities, but there has to be, he says, some sort of environmental toxin at play. So let's go ahead and listen in as reporters ask more questions of the Health and Human Services Secretary.
Genes don't cause epidemics. You need an environmental toxin. And we're going to look at all the potential culprits. We're going to look at mold. We're going to look at food additives. We're going to look at pesticides. We're going to look at air and water and medicines. So, we're going to look at ultrasound, because there's a timeline that, something happened. In fact, Congress said to EPA, ordered EPA to tell us what year the autism epidemic began. The EPA scientists came back and said it happened in 1989. Oh, you have to find a toxin that became ubiquitous around that time period. And that affected every demographic, from Cubans in Key Biscayne to Inuit in Alaska. And that affects boys at a 4-to-1 ratio as girls. There's a limited universe of those, but actually it's quite large. And, Eberhard Spichota was the one who suggested that, one of the things we have to look at is ultrasound. I don't think that that's probably a factor, but it's one of the exposures that became ubiquitous during that period. And we're going to look at all of them agnostically. We're going to find the potential exposures that increased during that time period. And we're going to we're going to see if there is a link to this injury.
Thank you, Nathan at Epic Times.
I'm sorry. Can I please go?
No, Nathan. Nathan.
Yes, Nathan Worcester with Epic Times. During that same time period of increasing autism prevalence or diagnoses, there's also been a significant increase in maternal and paternal age. Couldn't that be a significant contributor
With what?
beyond maternal and paternal age?
we're going to look at all of that. We're going to look at obesity in the parents. We're going to look at the age of the parents. We're going to look at diabetes in the parents. We're going to look at all of these potential exposures. And because of AI and because of the digitalization of health records and the mass of health records that are now available to us, we can do this much more quickly than has ever been done in the past.
Cheyenne. This is our last question. Thank you.
Do you still pledge to have answers by September, or is that going to be the beginning of this process? And are you open to following the science regardless of whether it confirms some of your expectations or not?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna follow the science no matter what it says, and we will have some of the answers by September. It's going to be an evolving process. We're going to issue grants the way that it's always done to university researchers and others. We're going to remove the taboo. People will know they can research and they can follow the science no matter what it says, without any kind of fear that they're going to be censored, that they're going to be gaslighted, that they're going to be silenced, they're going to be defunded, delicensed, and we're going to give them permission to do this research. And then we're going to open it up to the research community, and we're going to task them with certain outcomes, and we're going to have them come and bid on how to do the research. This is all being run by Jay Bhattacharya and I think Martin Koldorf may be also working on this on designing the grant proposals. So it's going to be done by credible scientists, by the most credible scientists from all over the world, and we're going to do it very, very quickly. Yeah, one more question. You identify yourself. I think we're going to figure out a way to make pressure on them to remove it. And I think also, there will be market forces that also exert pressure on them to remove it. And I want to say that I'm very grateful to President Trump because he tasked me on day one of this job with making this a priority, of finding out what's causing the autism epidemic, and we are going to do it for him. Thank you all very much.
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, walking off the stage after a news conference talking about this new CDC study showing autism prevalence, showing that it has increased. You see some of the numbers on your screen there. Prevalence 1 in 31 among 8-year-olds. This was a study done at 16 sites across the country in 2022, showing that 3.4 times is prevalent in boys. The prevalence lower in white children, but again, the prevalence higher than in previous years, something that is a trend that we have seen. Obviously, discussion and questions over the cause of that, but something that the Secretary says they hope to have some answers by September when it comes to what is causing that. Well, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus this morning. We've covered a lot of ground, had a number of live events that we took you to in this last hour. Governor Ron DeSantis in Fort Myers. We took you to the Florida House for that vote on banning cell phone use during the school day, that Robert F. Kennedy Autism News Conference as well. So we hope you join us at 2 o'clock for Florida Live, and then back at 4 for Fox 35 News Plus. You can watch us every day at 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m., not only here on Fox Local, but also on fox35orlando.com and on YouTube. So however you're watching us, we appreciate it, and we hope you join us later as well. So that's going to do it for us. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you soon.